Dr. Ahmad Yousaf is a hospitalist at Saline Health System. Originally from New Jersey, Dr. Yousaf now cares for our community by providing comprehensive care during your hospital stay. And while he's passionate about every one of his patients, he also has a big heart for caring for those that are miles away.
I do refugee medical missions. I work with different refugee groups, and that's kind of been my focus in the last couple of years when I go on these trips.
While helping others is a big part of why he takes his expertise overseas, his desire to make a difference in the lives of refugees is very personal.
My wife was a refugee. She was a refugee from the first Gulf War, leaving Kuwait. I would have never met her if she wasn't able to get the help that she needed when she was a baby. But she ended up here with her family, safe, sought asylum, became citizens, and has since had a life, that led her to a place where she's now working at the Children's Hospital treating cleft palate babies, and so to see the potential in somebody who, if you were to look at for a brief second in the middle of Kuwait, fleeing for their lives at a fence border, you would never be able to tell that that 1.5-year-old girl would one day be somebody who was going to help so many people and be so smart and all those kind of things. And so to help people realize the potential that they may have, especially when the world has kind of forgotten how valuable they can be, is something that's really important to me.
Although he feels called to be there, it's never easy to learn of the refugees' situations firsthand.
I went with the expectation knowing that these people had been through something that I could never ever imagine. They've seen their family members get killed in front of them. They've seen their houses burned down. They've seen everything they've ever owned taken away. They've seen family members get raped in front of them and children be killed in front. Things that you could never imagine. And so I knew that I'd be walking into a room where I had never had that experience. I was privileged enough to never have to worry about anything more than the silly things that I worry about. And have to walk into this pretty heavy room with somebody who'd gone through something so much more. And all I could really do is hope to give them a little bit of dignity back by showing them that I cared about them, that I understood where they were coming from, that as a doctor, I wanted to listen to their heart the way I'd listen to anybody's heart, and try to diagnose their problem the way I diagnose anybody's problem, and give them the medication they needed to feel better. You don't have to change the world for it to be meaningful. A lot of times you just have to change the experience for one person in a moment, for it to be worth your while.
We may live very different kinds of lives, but we really aren't that different.
They're human beings just like you and me. I saw, dads worried about how they're going to provide for their families, and I saw moms who were worried about whether the fever that their baby had was more serious than just a virus. And really, the message to me that's most valuable is that they're just one of us. It just happens to be that they've been implanted in a place that's just so far different than ours. A lot of the stories you hear about refugees and a lot of the associations you hear about refugees just aren't true. They're just normal people trying to survive, trying to make it work, and they just have it tougher than we do. And that's kind of the thing that I'd rather us focus on, remembering that we could have easily been in that position just by luck of the draw, and we would have hoped, I think, obviously, that if we were in that situation, that we'd find people like us looking nicely upon us and not assuming the worst in us.
These experiences have taught Dr. Yousaf that all of us can make a difference in others' lives.
Most important thing that we can do, no matter what you do for a living and no matter what abilities or education you have, is being willing to have an open mind and open heart to learn people's stories. Don't just take what's been fed to you about certain types of people, but instead try to find a way of really learning who they are. Really, I think if we just did that, if we just, as a community, as a society, learned or was willing to learn and appreciate people in those kind of really difficult situations, I think the answers become more clear about what we can do. And a lot of times, it's just teaching people around us those same things, finding ways to support them financially, finding ways to support them politically, and finding ways to support them emotionally.
His missions may be medical in nature, but it is his faith that encourages him to return time and time again.
I'm a religious person, right? And so I think God, in whatever way you believe in Him, in all the major religions, focuses a lot on our obligation as citizens of this world to help people who are in their most vulnerable states, whether it's the traveler or the widow or the orphan or somebody who just doesn't have anything. And so the refugee as a general term, is that person embodied? Whether it's a kid or a woman who's lost her family, or a man who's lost everything that's important to him. They're in the most vulnerable states of their lives, and especially now in a world where a lot of refugees are demonized, I think that humanizing them is kind of the most important thing for me to do, and the only way I can do that is if I'm there with them and get a chance to tell their stories.